At 20 years old, Ron Howard stood in front of his bathroom mirror and watched pieces of his own hair fall into the sink. At that time, he was the star of the #1 television show in America. Around 50 million people watched him on television every week. They saw him smiling and looking confident. What they did not see was that behind that smile, he was struggling deeply. His body was reacting to a level of stress and anxiety that he did not even fully understand. And this was only the beginning of the difficult experiences Hollywood had waiting for him. Most people recognize Ron Howard as the sweet little boy from the Andy Griffith Show or the kind and decent teenager from Happy Days. But very few people know what those years truly cost him. In the mid-1970s, Happy Days became the biggest show on television. Ron played Richie Cunningham, a polite and ordinary teenager from Milwaukee. The show first aired in January 1974, and within 2 years it was attracting nearly 50 million viewers every single week. Ron Howard became one of the most famous faces in America. However, behind the scenes, something was happening that deeply hurt him. Henry Winkler, who played Arthur the Fonz Fonzarelli, was becoming more popular than Ron's character. Every time Fonzie appeared on screen, the audience cheered loudly. The television network executives at ABC noticed this reaction. They even started discussing the idea of renaming the show Fonzie's Happy Days. For Ron, who had worked since childhood to reach this level of success, the thought was heartbreaking. Instead of talking about his feelings, he kept everything inside. He did not speak to a therapist. He did not tell his friends or even his family how much it hurt him. He tried to act as if everything was fine. But his body began to show the pain he refused to express. He developed severe eczema, and painful rashes appeared on his skin, especially around his eyelids. Then his hair began to fall out in large clumps. It was not normal hair loss that runs in families. It happened quickly and in an alarming way, as he later explained in his memoir. He was only 20 years old, and the stress of feeling replaced on his own show was making him physically sick. Years later, Ron spoke honestly about that period. He admitted that he should have talked to a professional and asked for help. Instead, he kept his emotions hidden. He quietly carried the embarrassment and fear of being overshadowed by another actor on a show that was supposed to be his big moment. The baseball cap that Ron Howard has worn in so many photos throughout his life was not simply a style choice. It began as a way to hide the damage caused by stress and hair loss. It became a kind of shield for him. The creator of Happy Days, Gary Marshall, refused to rename the show without Ron's permission. Ron even threatened to leave after the second season if the title was changed. Eventually, the show kept its original name. But the emotional damage had already been done. Every time Ron looked in the mirror, he saw proof that success in Hollywood comes with a price that no one talks about. The ratings were high, the money was good, and yet he felt like he was falling apart inside. What made it even harder was the loneliness. He was surrounded by people on set every day. The cast members cared about one another. Gary Marshall treated him with respect. Still, Ron felt alone because he did not know how to ask for support. He grew up in a family where problems were handled quietly. You did your job and showed up the next day ready to work. That strong work ethic helped him many times in his career, but during this period it also prevented him from seeking the help he needed. Even then, Ron understood that if he wanted to survive in the entertainment industry, he would have to find a different path. That path meant walking away from the very thing that made him famous. Almost no one believed he could do it. To truly understand what Happy Days did to Ron Howard, it helps to look back at his early life. Ronald William Howard was born on March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma. His father, Rance Howard, was serving in the Air Force and dreamed of becoming an actor. His mother, Jean Spiegel Howard, had similar dreams. They were both from small towns and had big ambitions but very little money. The family eventually moved to California. Rance realized that Hollywood often needed child actors, and young Ron quickly became involved in acting. He made his first screen appearance at only 18 months old in a film called Frontier Woman. Before he could read or write, he was already performing in front of cameras. At age 6, he was cast as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show, which premiered on October 3, 1960. Producer Sheldon Leonard had seen Ron in an earlier television pilot and was impressed by his natural talent. Ron appeared in 243 out of 249 episodes over 8 seasons. From the time he was 6 until he was 14, he grew up on television screens across America. But fame at such a young age is not always a blessing. It can be a heavy burden. At school, Ron faced constant teasing. Some classmates assumed he thought he was better than them. Others saw him as weak or spoiled. Despite the bullying, his parents insisted that he attend public school in Burbank. They believed that living a normal life was important, even if it was uncomfortable. His parents also kept a strict watch over his life. They controlled his schedule, limited his friendships, and carefully managed his work. He was allowed to act on The Andy Griffith Show and maybe take on one additional project during the off-season. While other children were playing outside, Ron was memorizing lines and working with adults much older than him. Later in life, Ron understood that his parents acted out of love and fear. They had seen other child actors struggle with too much freedom and too much money. They did not want their son to become another sad story. Still, as a child, Ron sometimes felt trapped. He did not feel like he fully belonged to the normal world of school, but he also did not fully belong to the adult world of Hollywood. When The Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968, Ron was 14 years old. He faced one of the hardest challenges in the entertainment industry, growing up. Many child stars struggle to transition into adult roles. The public often cannot see them as anything other than the characters they played as children. After experiencing extreme stress on Happy Days years later, Ron made a bold decision. He wanted to become a director. He did not want to wait. He wanted to start immediately. But Hollywood did not take him seriously. To many people, he was still Opie or Richie Cunningham. Studio executives politely dismissed him and suggested he try again in 10 or 15 years. Ron decided to approach Roger Corman, a well-known producer famous for giving new filmmakers a chance. Corman offered him a simple deal. Ron would star in a low-budget car movie called Eat My Dust. If the film made money, Corman would allow him to direct his own movie. Eat My Dust was a success. It earned more than $5 million on a small budget. True to his word, Corman gave Ron the opportunity to direct a film titled Grand Theft Auto. Ron and his father wrote the script quickly, and the movie was filmed in just 15 days on a modest budget. On the first day of directing, Ron nearly lost his job. He worked too slowly and did not complete enough camera setups. The schedule was tight, and there was no room for mistakes. The cinematographer, Gary Graver, quietly helped him learn how to move faster and manage the set more effectively. Ron later said that this guidance saved his career. Grand Theft Auto became a financial success, earning more than $15 million. After that, Ron decided he would focus only on directing, not acting and directing at the same time. He had discovered his true passion. He eventually left Happy Days after the 7th season in 1980. The network had refused to give him more control behind the scenes. The show continued without him for several more seasons, but it was never quite the same. Ron's directing career grew steadily. In 1982, he directed Night Shift, which featured a memorable performance by Michael Keaton. In 1984, he directed Splash, starring Tom Hanks. The movie was a big hit and helped establish Hanks as a major star. Around this time, Ron formed an important partnership with producer Brian Grazer. Together they founded Imagine Entertainment in 1985. Over the years, Ron directed many successful films. In 1995, he directed Apollo 13, which received 9 Academy Award nominations. He proved that he could handle large and complex stories. Then, in 2001, he directed A Beautiful Mind. The film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Ron Howard, the former child star who once lost his hair from stress, had become an Oscar-winning director. From the outside, it looked like a perfect success story. But even at the height of his achievements, the pressure and responsibility never completely disappeared. Success in Hollywood had given him fame and respect, but it had also tested his strength, his health, and his sense of identity from the time he was a small child. During the awards campaign for A Beautiful Mind, a serious controversy began to grow around the film. The movie told the life story of mathematician John Nash, but critics and rival awards campaigns started pointing out parts of Nash's real life that were not shown in the film. They revealed that he had made anti-Semitic remarks in the past and had bisexual relationships, details that the movie did not explore. These claims were used to question the film's honesty and to damage its chances at the Academy Awards. Ron Howard felt that the situation was unfair and that the accusations were being used in a manipulative way to hurt the film's reputation. Even though the movie went on to win major Oscars, including Best Director for Ron, the experience affected him deeply. He saw clearly how Hollywood could celebrate you one moment and try to tear you down the next. After that Oscar victory, Ron's career entered a period filled with both big successes and painful disappointments. In 2006, he directed The Da Vinci Code. The film was a massive commercial success, earning around $758 million worldwide. However, critics were harsh, giving it a very low score on Rotten Tomatoes. Religious groups around the world protested outside theaters, saying the film was offensive. Ron suddenly found himself in the middle of global controversy. The movie was making huge amounts of money, but it was not receiving respect from critics. The difficult period did not end there. In 2011, he directed The Dilemma, which received poor reviews and struggled financially. In 2013, he directed Rush. Critics praised it, but it earned only modest box office numbers in the United States. In 2015, In the Heart of the Sea was released with a large budget but open to disappointing ticket sales. In 2016, Inferno performed weakly with critics and underperformed in the domestic box office. For major films in a row either failed financially, were criticized heavily, or both. For a director who had once stood on stage accepting an Oscar, this was a humbling and painful stretch. Things became even more challenging in 2017 when Ron received an urgent call from Lucasfilm. The studio had fired the original directors of Solo, a Star Wars story during production due to creative disagreements. The film was already far into filming, and the studio needed someone experienced and dependable to finish it quickly. Ron agreed to take over. He stepped into a chaotic situation and ended up reshooting about 70% of the movie. The budget grew to an estimated $275 million. When Solo was released in 2018, it earned $393 million worldwide. For most films, that would be considered successful. But because it was part of the Star Wars franchise, expectations were extremely high. The movie was labeled a box office disappointment, becoming the first Star Wars film to be widely seen as a financial failure. Later, Ron admitted that the film did not feel personal to him. He had been hired to fix problems, not to create something from his own passion. The result reflected that lack of personal connection. 2 years later, in 2020, Ron directed Hillbilly Elegy, based on the memoir by J.D. Vance. The movie was expected to be an awards contender, but it received harsh criticism. Many reviewers accused it of simplifying complex social issues. It earned a very low score from critics and even brought Ron a nomination for Worst Director at the Golden Raspberry Awards. Glenn Close, who acted in the film, received both an Oscar nomination and a Razzie nomination for the same role, something very rare in Hollywood. The story became even more complicated in 2024 when J.D. Vance was selected as the Republican nominee for vice president. Ron publicly said he was surprised and disappointed by Vance's political direction. The film he had directed suddenly became part of a larger political debate, placing him in an unexpected spotlight. By this point, Ron Howard had experienced nearly every extreme the film industry could offer. He had been a beloved child star, a stressed young actor losing his hair from anxiety, an Oscar-winning director at the top of his field, and a filmmaker facing criticism and commercial failure. Many people might have chosen retirement after such ups and downs. Ron chose to keep working. The most painful moments in his life, however, were not related to movies or awards. They were personal losses. His mother, Jean Spiegel Howard, passed away on September 2, 2000, at the age of 73. She had put much of her own acting career aside to support her family and raise Ron and his younger brother Clint. Later in life, she appeared in small roles in some of Ron's films. During casting for Apollo 13, she auditioned for the role of astronaut Jim Lovell's mother and even removed her false teeth during the audition to make the character more realistic. She got the part. Her death deeply affected Ron. His film How the Grinch Stole Christmas was released only months after she passed, and he dedicated it to her memory. She never had the chance to see A Beautiful Mind, the film that would bring him his Oscar. Ron's father, Rance Howard, died on November 25, 2017, at the age of 89. Earlier that same year, Rance had lost his second wife, Judy O'Sullivan, to Alzheimer's disease. Within 10 months of burying her, he also passed away. Ron honored his father publicly, describing him as a farm boy from the Great Depression whose passion for acting changed their family's future. Rance had played an important role in shaping Ron's life and career. He had influenced the character of Opie on The Andy Griffith Show and had helped write the script for Grand Theft Auto. He also insisted that his sons live normal lives, attend public school, and never see themselves as the family's main source of income. After their father's death, Ron and Clint wrote a memoir titled The Boys, published in 2021. The book became a bestseller and explored their unusual childhood and family struggles. One of the most emotional parts of their story involved Clint's battle with addiction. His substance abuse became so severe that their parents had to take away his keys to the family home because they did not trust him in that state. Clint later admitted that he used substances simply because he enjoyed them at the time, but they eventually harmed him badly. With the support of Alcoholics Anonymous and a sponsor, he achieved sobriety. He later expressed deep gratitude that he survived that difficult period. Ron also faced the deaths of several important figures from his early career. Andy Griffith passed away in 2012. Don Knotts, who had played Barney Fife on The Andy Griffith Show, died in 2006. Happy Days creator Gary Marshall passed away in 2016. Ron once said Marshall was the greatest boss he ever had. He later discovered that he and Don Knotts were actually distant cousins, something neither of them knew while Knotts was alive. That discovery carried unexpected emotional meaning for him. Despite these personal and professional challenges, Ron Howard has continued working. In 2024, his documentary Jim Henson Idea Man premiered at the Cannes Film Festival and received outstanding reviews. It went on to win multiple Emmy Awards. That same year, his drama Eden premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. He also began directing new projects, showing no signs of slowing down. In 2025, Ron surprised many people by appearing as a guest actor on The Studio, playing a humorous version of himself. He wanted to be genuinely good in the role, not just make a cameo. The performance earned him his first acting Emmy nomination at the age of 71. On June 7, 2025, Ron and his wife Cheryl celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. They donated a special bench to a park in Burbank where they had once dated as teenagers. Their original wedding in 1975 had cost only $800. Ron often speaks emotionally about Cheryl, describing their marriage as a journey through calm waters and difficult rapids. He says their secret has always been mutual respect and continuing to move forward together. They met as students at John Burroughs High School. Their first date was in November 1970, when they watched a re-release of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and shared pizza afterward. Cheryl once delayed accepting his proposal because she wanted to finish her education first. Even decades later, Ron becomes emotional when speaking about her energy and joy for life. Together they raised 4 children. Their daughter Bryce Dallas Howard became a successful actress and director, starring in major films and directing episodes of popular television series. Ron did not allow Bryce to act as a child because he wanted her to avoid the pressures he had faced. She began acting in films only as an adult. Their other children also built their own paths. In 2025, Ron and Brian Grazer celebrated 40 years of Imagine Entertainment. Ron has said that he has never been on autopilot in his career. He continues to develop new projects and has clearly stated that he has no plans to retire. The young man who once stood in front of a mirror watching his hair fall out from stress is now a 71-year-old filmmaker still creating new work. He endured career highs and lows, personal losses, public criticism, and private struggles. Through all of it, he kept going. He kept putting on the baseball cap. He kept picking up the camera. For Ron Howard, the true failure would have been giving up. And he never did.